Gui is without a doubt one of the most interesting and exciting steakhouses to open in NYC this year. It was started by chef Sungchul Shim, who already has multiple Michelin-starred restaurants under his belt. Gui blends a modern American steakhouse with Korean influences. There was no question about it, I had to give Gui a try. It's a pleasant evening here in New York City. Right now I'm at Bryant Park and they actually have yoga in the park going on at the moment, which is quite the sight. But more importantly, I had a damn fine dinner tonight. I went to one of the most interesting and hyped up steakhouses of the moment. It's called Gui. Now, I've been wanting to go to Gui for a while. It comes from the same chef who started the Michelin-starred restaurant Kochi and the Michelin-starred restaurant Mari. Both are places that I've gone to and have really enjoyed. I believe Gui is his latest venture, and just looking at the menu, it looks incredible. And so far, the reviews have been very positive. Basically, Gui is a Korean-influenced steakhouse, and with so many steakhouses in New York City, it's nice for a place like Gui to really stand out and be different. The reason why I decided to go to Gui this evening was because it's restaurant week, and their menu looked like a pretty good deal. For those who are unfamiliar with Restaurant Week, it's an event that occurs twice here in New York City. It occurs during the sort of down months for restaurants. In turn, these restaurants will craft special prefix menus meant to give customers a sort of deal with the intention of luring in customers when business is slow. Now, sometimes you never know with Restaurant Week. I've had both good and bad experiences. For instance, last year I went to Delmonico's during Restaurant Week and their menu was fantastic, and that was one hell of a deal. However, I also went to Crown Shy for Restaurant Week last year, and while I really enjoyed the food, they did reduce the portion sizes by a lot, and they charged for the bread when you normally get that for free, and that rubbed me the wrong way. Still, I really like Restaurant Week, and Gui's Restaurant Week menu looked great, so I thought I'd take a chance and give them a try. And with that being said, this was my dinner at Gui. Gui is located a mere block away from Times Square in Midtown Manhattan. While I don't consider the area to be the best showcase of New York City's food scene, there are in fact a couple of solid steakhouses already in the neighborhood like Gallagher's and Wolfgang's. It was in February 2025 in which Gui opened their doors. The restaurant is the product of chef Sungchul Shim, who worked at such illustrious restaurants like the 3 Michelin-starred Per Se and the 3 Michelin-starred Le Bernardin. He then set out on his own to open Kochi, which earned a Michelin star, and then Mari, which was also awarded a star. Since I've dined at both Kochi and Mari and had great meals there, I was no doubt excited for my dinner at Gui when I arrived for my reservation at 5 p.m. Stepping into the establishment, I first arrived at Bar 92, which is actually one of 3 parts of Gui. Under the same roof, there's a steakhouse, a bar, and eventually there will be an omakase room. I was there for the steakhouse, however, which was on the 2nd floor. After I was seated, I took in the space, and Gui is certainly a nice looking restaurant. It's spacious, modern, and comfortable. Unlike a lot of steakhouses, which are dark and moody, Gui's windows bring in a lot of natural light. There were also some nice Asian touches throughout the restaurant, including a pleasant water feature that was right beside me. In terms of design and atmosphere, I thought Gui did a good job. Once I was settled, it was time to look at the various menus, and there were a lot of them. I practically had a small library before me. I started by checking the main menu. Gui offers most of what you would expect from a modern American steakhouse. There are elaborate shellfish towers, caviar options, and a lot of the classic steakhouse dishes like a Caesar salad and thick-cut bacon, but even those options are imbued with Korean and Asian influences. For instance, the Caesar salad is topped with a umeboshi dressing and the bacon contains a chongjang glaze. The restaurant also has a section featuring dishes to share which are purely Korean and Asian influenced courses. Regarding the steaks, Gui features most of the steakhouse standards, including an impressive selection of Japanese A5 Wagyu. There was no doubt about it, the main menu looked great, but I was at Gui for Restaurant Week. For $60, Gui provided a 3-course dinner which included an appetizer, main, and dessert. However, there were also a couple of supplements, including the prime rib for $45 more, which is a signature dish of the restaurant. Normally, the prime rib by itself goes for $79, so the fact that I'm getting getting an appetizer, side dish, and dessert for a bit more I thought was a good deal. Next, I turned my attention to the wine list, which featured a good selection. At first, I thought I would get a glass of wine, but then I checked out the cocktail book. There were certainly some fine-sounding cocktails, but what captured my attention was a small insert listing a few martinis, and a martini sounded perfect to me. My beverage was prepared tableside with a martini cart service. What impressed me was that the vodka was encased in a massive block of ice, ensuring one hell of a cool drink. I decided to order a Vesper. It's probably my favorite version of a martini, plus Casino Royale is one of my all-time favorite James Bond films. The martini cart service was entertaining to watch, and the result was a solid-looking martini. That Vesper hit the spot. It ticked all the boxes of what you would expect in the cocktail. Plus, I felt particularly good that day, which made that drink taste even better. Soon enough, I was presented with my appetizer, the Hui Monchim, which contained hamachi crudo, papaya salad, and leche de tigre. First off, that was a beautiful looking dish. The colors were spectacular, and I couldn't wait to give it a try. The hamachi was very nice. It was tender and tasty. I also liked the papaya salad for the textural variety it provided. The leche de tigre worked as well for the citrus it lent to the dish. Although I felt that if there was a touch more sweetness to the course, it would have improved things. Still, that was a delightful dish and the type of course that's perfect to start off a heavy steak meal. After finishing, it wasn't long until the main event when I was presented with the restaurant's signature prime rib. Now that was a beautiful piece of meat. Gui's prime rib is thick cut and has a shio combo and nurak rub. Alongside the meat was the au jus and horseradish cream. For restaurant week, the prime rib special even included a side of palm puree. Everything looked fantastic and I was eager to dig in, but before I could try anything, the man who made my cocktail came back and transferred my Vesper to a fresh, colder glass, which I thought was a nice touch. Finally, it was time to try the prime rib and I was blown away. That first bite was heavenly. The meat had so much flavor to it. It was extraordinary. There wasn't one thing about that cut of beef that I didn't love. First off, that prime rib was so tender and perfectly cooked. My knife just glided right through it. It was certainly a juicy cut of beef that was of course enhanced by the pleasant picture of au jus, which added even more flavor. There was also the horseradish cream, which is indeed a classic pairing. Now I definitely liked what the horseradish did to the meat, but I mainly ate the prime rib just with the au jus since the meat was so flavorful to begin with. I absolutely loved the crust on that beef, which had the shio kombu and nurak rub. It imparted such an excellent savory flavor that perfectly enhanced the meat. Overall, that prime rib was nearly perfect. It was unquestionably one of the best that I've ever had. While I was enjoying that dish, I also feasted on my side of the palm puree. The potatoes were very nice, and the course had great flavor, but texturally, I thought that the side was a little too dense. If it was just a touch looser, it would have been perfect. But like I said, I still really enjoyed it. The puree was rich, and I loved that addition of the Comté cheese on top of the potatoes. It added a wonderful umami profile that gave the puree more character and complexity. Of course, the potatoes also went very well dipped in the au jus. Between my prime rib and side, I was enjoying a delightful dinner, but all good things come to an end. But fortunately, I still had dessert to look forward to. I went with the black and white cake, which consisted of devil's food cake, Jane caramel, and vanilla ganache. The cake looked great, although I wish that it was a bit larger. Nevertheless, I was still eager to give it a try. To put it simply, that cake hit the mark. I really enjoyed it. First off, the dish was moist and fresh, equating to a textural delight. The components topping the cake were spot on, as they perfectly complemented the rich, chocolatey flavors of the dish. Overall, that was a good dessert and a fine ending to a very satisfying meal. After finishing, it was time for the bill, which totaled to $139.36, but with my tip, I spent about $165. Now, that was no doubt costly, but for me, it was worth it. So that was one hell of a fine meal. I had a great time at Gui. Now, I liked all the food I had, but obviously the highlight was that prime rib. That was hands down one of the best prime ribs that I've ever had. That was outstanding. I know it's so cliche, but that meat just melted in my mouth. Oh, it was so good. Plus the seasoning on the meat was just so tasty and took the dish to another level. I really liked Gui's menu. There are just so many interesting courses on there that I would love to try. Plus it really makes the restaurant stand out, which is so nice to see when it seems like there's so many steakhouses that are just carbon copies of each other. In fact, a lot of the non-steak dishes just seemed like reason enough to make a trip to Gui. In terms of the restaurant week menu, I thought it was a fair deal, although I do wish that the dessert was a bit larger. Still, I felt like I got my money's worth. To sum it up, I really liked Gui, and I always appreciate places doing something new. For a New York City steakhouse, Gui's menu is unique and interesting. I'm already thinking about what I want to try next when I return to the restaurant. For today, however, I really enjoyed my dinner, and I will obviously be back to Gui.